welcome back. I can't believe how quickly this channel seems to be getting started. We just threw that random introductory episode up the other day, and actually it was yesterday, and we already have a veritable shitload of questions coming in, so maybe this channel is really going to succeed. Which brings us to the first question, which is related to the channel itself. A guy named Brent Moore 3 says, not to be discouraging at all to your son, but I would recommend a better audio setup for these videos. Camera quality and lighting were on point, but audio left some to be desired. And I totally agree. And it's kind of like the philosophy of everything I suggest for people in like pre and post retirement is if you have a block on something, sometimes you just have to go for it, even if you're not prepared. So what happened to us is my son has been bugging me to start a YouTube channel going again for pretty much years, and I just keep procrastinating for one reason or the other. And then we were just sitting there yesterday, and it's like a long Christmas break. The two of us are sitting at home trying to think of stuff to do, and we're like, okay, let's just start filming right now. And we didn't have the right microphone. We do happen to have a great camera, so we just turned on the camera and rolled with what we have. And then the results from that, like everybody watching it and sending in questions, was so encouraging that here we are the next day already making another episode. And we have a deluxe microphone now, and I've upgraded my wardrobe a little bit. And it's still going to be a hokey, janky show for starters, but it doesn't matter because we're making a little bit of progress each time. And that's really how it works if you're trying to get ahead in like early retirement or starting a business too. You just have to put something out there and then get the momentum going for yourself. And then you're going to have the energy to keep going. So thank you for that first question, Brent Moore 3. The next question. All right, our next question, we're going to give ourselves another little softball because we're just warming up here. This one is from a Smevens 3. Or maybe it's Smevens 3 hours ago. Anyway, it says, how do you bike in winter? I live in Madison, Wisconsin, and between the wet, snow-covered roads and drivers, I do not feel safe riding my bike to work and the grocery store, etc. So it's a good question because it's the start of winter here in the United States, and the answer is you just do it. Because I've been growing up, I grew up in a place very similar to Madison, Wisconsin, and never really had a car through all my childhood and young adulthood. And there's always a way to bike. You don't have to, but you can just squeeze out your own comfort levels to get to the level of biking that works for you. So for me, I do it all the time, and this is my secret. I have two secrets. They're called clothing and tires. If you put the right clothing on your body and the right tires on your bike, then it's like winter doesn't even exist. And people say like, oh, well, that's not quite as nice as biking on Sanibel Island when it's super warm and I'm just like on a cruiser bike. That's true, but transportation always sucks in the winter because car driving sucks too. Your car slides around, the roads are shitty, and you have to scrape off your car and all this stuff in the morning, which is stuff you don't have to do on your bike. So there's trade-offs, and biking's the only one that's going to keep you in shape through the winter. So here's what I do. I start with a coat. Good quality winter coat is all it takes, nothing fancy. On cold days like it happens to be today in Colorado, I will put on a pair of thermal long underwear, which I just leave on all day anyway because I call it the oil well you can fit in your pants. And then if it's below like 30 or 20 degrees, you put on one of these bank robber deals. Keeps you extra warm. Put on a hat. You might want some kind of goggles or sunglasses. And then you just put on gloves, depending on your hand's needs. And this outfit right here, which I also use for snowboarding pretty much, maybe a different coat, you can blaze along at like 30 miles an hour downhill in 0 degrees Fahrenheit and be perfectly good like this. And you get warmer as you ride instead of colder because you're using your muscles instead of your gas pedal. And then the only other thing you have to know about winter biking is what to use on your bike. So we can cover that right now outside. So this is really all it takes for winter biking. I got these fancy electric bikes. Actually, I got a junky electric bike and a fancy electric bike, but you don't even need electric bikes. The only reason they're appearing in this video is because I've kind of torn up all my old mountain bikes and they're in parts right now. So just pretend this one's not electric. You just need rough, knobby tires with the pressure not too high. You need lights on your bike that run all the time, preferably like USB rechargeable LED lights, so you're not always fussing with having to recharge them too often. And you need fenders. Fenders are an excellent idea for Minnesota or Wisconsin winter. because it keeps your clothes clean as you ride. And you need a backlight too that you use all the time, even during the daytime. In fact, one thing that saves a lot of lives, I feel, is you set your lights to do this during the day. Even if it's a sunny summer day, it drastically reduces the amount of cars that are going to be cutting you off because they're like, whoa, an emergency vehicle. And normally they just don't register a bike if you're just there with no lights on. So try it and see how much more respect you get from the drivers. So unfortunately we don't have any snow in Colorado this year, so I can't really demonstrate what this bike is best at. But if you are a high budget, fancy pants biker, you might want to look into a fat tire bike because it is kind of the ultimate all-weather machine. Check this out. Question number 3 comes from a gentleman named Shoemanchu1, and it's a bit of a more serious question because it's about parenting, being a dad. My question, do you recommend insourcing everything for a dad of 2, a toddler and a baby, or who is working full-time, given that the insourcing often comes out of the weekend, the only real time I have to spend playing and reading and bonding with my kids? This is a major point of contention with my wife, who has to pick up the slack when I'm making home repairs, mowing, gardening, maintaining our clown car fleet of 2 cars, etc. So that is a great question, and bonus points for using the term clown cars. The first question is yes, or the first answer is yes. You should choose kids over like do-it-yourselfy work because you only have one chance, and if you are working and your wife is at home doing all the work with the kids, she needs as much break as she can get. So if that's really your only choice, then yeah, you would have to outsource and choose the kids. But luckily, there's a bigger picture and it doesn't really have to be quite that simple. So first of all, one of the golden rules of life is if you're in a hole, the first thing you need to stop doing is digging yourself deeper into the hole. And my views on this are a little bit hardcore, my fatherhood views, but I feel like if you've had kids and you couldn't really afford to stay home with them yet, then that's already a little bit of a hole that you've dug. Everybody does that, so it's fairly normal, but the ideal situation is that you get your money taken care of before you even have the kids, and that way both parents can stay home and be equally shared. But having failed that, because the kids are already out there, the next thing you want to do is at least not dig yourself any deeper. So if you're doing outsourcing, maybe you're taking care of the house, but you're not doing like a $50,000 kitchen upgrade just so that you can have the latest styles, because you're digging this financial hole even deeper, which means you're locking in your working career even longer. So find a way to raise the kids in a frugal way, and it's good for them to see you doing some of the work. You don't want to just be like at home, sitting on a blanket while your staff runs around and cleans up after you and mows your lawn, because that's also not much of a role model for these kids. And then you can also do this with the way you handle your vacations and your time with the kids. There's a huge spectrum of ways to do this. You can have like the Disney and vacation-y kind of lifestyle where you're always just flying off, digging the hole deeper and spending time with the kids that way. Or you can stay at home and do like nature-based stuff around your house, which is how I always did things with my son. We were always going to the creek or the local parks, or learning to ride bikes or scooters or things like that, playing frisbee in the park. And this is all stuff that your kids have remembered just as much, but it costs you nothing, and you're spending a lot less of your quality time driving around, and that gets you ahead more quickly financially. And before you know it, you'll be able to work less and spend more time with your kids, and then there's going to be less conflict with your spouse because everybody's contributing to the household altogether. And then the final thing is what you do as a dad for your own leisure. And I would argue that mostly your leisure should be your job, and when you come home you're on duty. So there's a lot of like the old sort of executive dad trends where people say, yeah, I work hard so I deserve to relax on the weekend. I'm going to watch football and have my boys over and get drunk, and then I'm going to go play golf. I would say like you don't do that if you want to keep your parenting situation and your marriage in a good arrangement. You should be on duty on the weekends, and you basically don't get any time off for now. Like, it's work, kids, take care of yourself, take care of everybody at home, but you don't have time for golf right now because you've got a baby and a toddler. That's a lot of work. You can dig through that, and then later on things will get easier for you. But don't feel like you deserve a break right now because you just signed up for a giant job. All right, so our fourth and final question comes from a person named Deuce Wolf. And it's like, I've paraphrased a little bit here just to make it faster about it. It says, "Dear Mr. Money Mustache, I have a friend finishing up med school. She was saying that the Triple M lifestyle and financial independence was impossible in her situation for these two reasons. A, she is going to complete school with about $300,000, these are Canadian dollars, but it's all kind of the same, in student debt, and only earn about $50,000 as a resident doctor for the first few years. And B, that medicine, specifically owning your own practice, is a bit of an entrepreneurship business, and your earnings, which are about $220,000 a year once you get your own practice, are deflated by the fact that you have debt and that there's the additional cost of raising a business. I tried to encourage her to be open-minded, but she seemed to feel like keeping up with the Joneses was not going to be optional as a doctor. She is generally very frugal, currently driving an $800 car, and she's terrified of her mounting student debt, which is currently at $180,000 and going up. So it sounds like your friend's a little bit confused about the competing factors of being a doctor, and there's like advantages and disadvantages. I'm definitely with you on the fact that if you're borrowing money for the school and that racks up, that's a stressful factor, and starting out with a lower salary than I did. For example, I did a cheaper school and then went straight to a high-ish salary as an engineer. So obviously that's the easy way to do it. But then the salaries of a doctor end up going higher than an engineer in like in later years. So really, I think doctors get confused because A, they're not always numbers people, and B, it's a stressful job, and C, it is you're following the example of the other doctors, and everyone kind of gets into this habit of expensive cars and vacation homes, and all of that is just totally arbitrary. Like, you do not have to do this, and there's a lot of doctors among the readers of Mr. Money Mustache, and they show how it can be done. And sure enough, what happens is they instantly pay off their medical school debt, then save up enough money to retire off, and then they can quickly change their practice to be whatever they want. Like, they can retire fully, or they can just run like a more casual medical practice where they do stuff according to their values and work part-time and then take lots of time for family, and it's more of like a lifestyle job. All this is possible in medicine. It's just not very common yet. So I would say that your friend should start with her strengths, which includes living cheaply right now, and then when you go into the resident stage, you're probably just going to be getting along, paying the interest on your debt, but not paying it down too much. Once you get into this $200,000+ salary, you just keep living like a normal person. Maybe you can upgrade to a $2,000 car and make sure you have a good bike too, and then put all your money to the medical school debt. And it'll only be about 3 years of full-time work to get a $300,000 debt paid off. So none of this nonsense where you still have medical debt in your 30s and 40s, late 30s and 40s like most doctors do. And at that point, you are on level playing ground with anybody else who has a great job and no debt. And then you're going to be free pretty soon afterwards, and just see who else is doing the same thing. Take inspiration not from your colleagues, but from other doctors who are actually good with money. Oh, and there's one more question from a Ryan Weaver. He says, can I listen to 2LNL music on Google Play Music or other online streaming? So yes, 2LNL stands for 2 launch pads and a lizard. That's my son's music production gig with a friend. Don't ask me, they're almost 13 years old, so the naming conventions of these guys is beyond what adults think of, but there is a way to listen more of his music if you want. There's an eye in the corner of the screen, and if you click that, it will bring up a little thing for the 2LNL channel, and there's probably going to be a link that says play the playlist or play all the music or something, and then you can just plug in some headphones and see what kind of music these guys are making. And yes, that's it. Thanks for watching this episode. Bring in the questions for the next one.